and welcome to Vet School Speaks. Today is Tuesday, July 6th. And this is a bonus episode. So if you're looking for a regular, chatty, woolly podcast episode, this isn't it. Just go back and look for a numbered one. This is a bonus episode that's all about crop tops. Is that fat lady talking about crop tops? Why, yes. Yes, she is. So I'm going to show you a slew, a herd. What is a grouping of crop tops? What do you think it is? A succulent of crop tops? I don't know. Put it in the YouTube comments. What's a gathering of crop tops called? But I'm going to show you several different ones. And yeah, they'll kind of range from beginner. I'm going to show you just how, I'm just going to talk. I'm not going to show you. This is not a show you. This is just like a show and tell. This is not a tutorial level episode. So this is just like showing you the ones that I have made, maybe talking a little bit briefly about some alterations that I've made for my specific self. Hey, general information. I am 5'7" almost. I have a 46-inch upper bust, a 56-inch full bust. Maybe we'll say 48-inch upper bust. I'm not sure. 56-ish inch full bust and a 63-inch hip. Although the hip measurement doesn't really come into this because they're all crop tops. Proportionately, I am long-waisted with short legs for my height. And I think that's the reason I'm really enjoying these crop tops. There's a couple of reasons. I'm enjoying high-waisted pants lately. So that's reason number one. Like, why not wear a crop top? Then you can get your pockets easier. And then I think also I'm just really enjoying the change of proportions that they create for my body. It's kind of like wearing an empire-waisted dress. They just kind of give you a different, they highlight your waist at a different level. And I'm just enjoying the way that looks right now. So yeah, they're going to go from me showing you my ready-to-wear tank top that I'm currently wearing, all the way to something that I've done a couple of different full bust adjustments on, and then everything in between. I would say these are all big, advanced beginner patterns, but of course, the tank top and then the dress number one that I'm going to show you, I would say are beginner friendly patterns. And tank top is not a pattern, but you don't need a sewing machine for that at all. In fact, none of these do you need a sewing machine for. It just makes the process a little bit faster. So yeah, let's get into it. The first one I'm going to talk about is just hemming a ready-to-wear crop top. So here it is on my whole human body. And I just remembered that I forgot to tell you this, but the pants that I'm wearing in all of these images are the Woolfork pants by Muna and Broad, which are written for, I'm not sure what their upper pattern measurement is. I think it's like 70-ish, but they will totally draft for you if you are bigger than their upward limit. So they're amazing. This is one size bigger than my normal size because this fabric, which is a viscose noil. Viscose is, I was afraid that it wouldn't want to have any tension put on it. So they are a little bit bigger than my normal size, and I love them. Also, they're cropped, because I love looking like I'm standing in a bucket. I do. I'm just saying. You want to stand in a bucket with me? We'll have a grand old time. So you can see I did use, well, you probably can't see, but you might be able to see, I used a twin needle on my sewing machine to hem it. But quite frankly, I would have normally just hand hemmed it. Knits are lovely in that they don't unravel. I know that's very counterintuitive to our knitting folks. But just think about cutting the bottom of your shirt. Your sweater, it doesn't really unravel. You have to unpick it. So the knits don't unravel, so you can just cut them across. You can use scissors. What I like to do, because I have one, is use a cutting mat and a rotary cutter, because it's very easy to like fold it so that you can make it symmetrical, but you don't have to have that in any way. But you can just cut it off, and then there's lots of tutorials about how to hand hem knits. And it's kind of a fun, like, sort of like a herringbone stitch, which I find actually quite pleasant to do. I didn't do it on this specific shirt. I don't know if it's because it was ribbed or what, but it seemed to kind of, it just didn't want to like cooperate in terms of like being able to see the hem. So it just kind of looked like I had a lot of little tucks in my hemline. But that's probably just user error. But normally I would just use a hand stitch because I enjoy hand stitching stuff. So yeah, even if you don't have a sewing machine, if you've got a needle or thread and an old tank top or a new tank top that's a little bit longer than you want, or maybe you just want to experiment, this is a great way to experiment if you want to have a crop top. Like if you're just not sure what that's going to look like on you, then this is a great way. Of course, you can also just fold it up and try it on, but you know, whatever. But so yeah, so that's just hemming a ready to wear tank top. So the first top I'm going to talk about is from 100 Acts of Sewing. It is a dress number 1. It is only available as a paper pattern, and it is slightly limited in its upward bust measurement. The 4X is a size 53. Now, I am a size 57, and it fits me fine, but you know, your mileage may vary. So just FYI. But it's a very beginner friendly pattern, and it uses just a bias tape facing, so it's just 2 pieces. It's actually 1 pattern piece. You trace it off, and then you kind of cut the neck a little bit scooped out, so that's the only differentiation between the front and the back. So it is very beginner friendly. And it's actually kind of my favorite top at the moment. So you'll see it here on my body. And I just find that I really, like, normally if I'm wearing like a regular tunic, I hate that it doesn't fit on my shoulders properly. But I really kind of just like the aesthetic of this. I think it makes it kind of look boxier. And the fabric that I used is Robert Kaufman's cotton linen. Essex, that's what I'm trying to say. And so it just kind of has a little bit more, it's got drape, but it's a slightly heavier fabric, and so I don't know, I think that just kind of lends to the boxiness of it. Also, I was wearing this shirt today, so it's probably a little bit more wrinkled. And you can also see that literally this morning I was taking the dogs to the groomer, and Gus jumped on me and just like tore a hole in there. So right now I just put a little bit of iron-on interfacing on there, and then I'll make a little stitching on it to kind of make sure it's reinforced and closed up. But so you'll see I used a contrast bias binding that shows just the tiniest bit from the outside, which I think may have been user error, but now I really like. This is one of the first things I ever sewed. I actually made a dress, but I just wasn't wearing it. Like, in fact, I had thought several times to put it in the giveaway pile, but I thought, oh no, I really like that fabric. If nothing else, I could use it, you know, maybe for some, like, just a lot of bias tape or for something else. But then I decided that I really liked the look of these crop tops, so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna cut it off. So I just cut it off, and yeah, just did like a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch hem, and then folded it over again and hemmed it just on the machine. The thread doesn't even match. It's gray, but it looks fine because the texture of this fabric is such that it has that kind of warp and weft contrast. So anyway, it is, I just dig it. And in fact, I think I wanted to do several experiments with different looks, and I think this is the one that I'm going to go forward with at this time, because I like that it's very forgiving. You saw in the video that I'm wearing a sports bra, but I can also just not wear a bra and flash people occasionally in my home, whatever. But I like that it doesn't have darts because it doesn't matter where my boobs are. And so the darts, since there are no darts there, they're not like pointing to the fact that my boobs are not in the correct place. So yeah, I really like it for that reason. And I think I just like the overall look of it. So I'm going to try to replicate that again. And so the next one I'm going to talk about is my Woolfork. I was lucky enough to be able to test sew this one, but Jacqueline Cieslak has this pattern out. It's a great pattern. Again, I would consider this to be an advanced beginner. It has facings, but the pattern has lots of different options. You have 3 length options. So you have a crop, a tunic, and a dress, and 2 sleeve options, either sleeveless or long sleeved. And just to add in, the Woolfork is available in bust sizes from 32 to 64.5. So that's 81.5 centimeters to 164 centimeters. So yeah, it is only available as a digital pattern. Like, you can purchase a hard copy of the book, but you do still have to digitally print the pattern pages. So I'll show you my cropped long sleeve version here. And that one is made with Brussels washer. So I made this one to fit my full bust size as the pattern was written. There are, if you're doing a crop top, or any top, excuse me, usually I shy away from them because I have really big arms, just proportionately. And so that's kind of a challenge to fit, but it's kind of more forgiving in your bust line if you do sleeves. As long as they're not like mega fitted. But you kind of have a little bit more room here because it doesn't matter if your armhole hits right against your bra line or slightly over or slightly this way, because your sleeve can kind of help you fudge that a little bit. And the reason I say that is I actually then made the tunic thinking, oh, okay, like this size worked great for me. I'll make the tunic in the same size. And the fit was not nearly as good. Now, luckily, this pattern is written with a center seam in both the front and the back. That's usually not my favorite because if you use a print, obviously you're going to have a line down the front. You don't have to have a seam there. You could just cut it on the fold and just make sure you kind of remove some of that seam allowance. But the nice thing about having a seam down the front or the back is that it allows you to kind of make adjustments after you've sewn the garment. So if you're making like a working muslin or whatever, say you just jumped in and you made the thing you wanted to wear and you thought, oh, it's not quite right. You can kind of like, as long as you don't tack your spacing down, you can just kind of fudge it and sew that center seam a little bit deeper. And so it'll kind of tighten yourself up around the neckline, because that's usually the kind of like most obvious if it's not quite fitting right. But yeah, so this is the long sleeve version, and I definitely will make some crops that are tank tops. It's just that this one really, I think, is suited to a very highly drapable fabric. This one is specifically Brussels washer, if I didn't say that. And so I was wanting to experiment with some more of my wovens and some light canvases, like a coca canvas or a cotton and steel canvas. But I do have some linens that I want to work on and do some tank tops with this one, because I do really like the hem. It has an asymmetrical hem that, well, I guess it's symmetrical, but it has an uneven hem that kind of like bells out at the side, which I think is very pretty and very cute. The other adjustment that I made is I did make my shirt 2 inches longer than is written in the pattern, and that's partly because I didn't do a full bust adjustment, which would add length for me. I just did it with the largest cup size as written. So that's the Woolfork by Jacqueline Cieslak. So the next top I'm going to talk about is the Ashton top, which is a pattern by Helen's Closet. and it looks like this. It is specifically written to be a crop top. It is written with a full facing, which is a very fun technique. If you've never done it, it involves like burrito rolling your shirt and turning it. It's kind of magic. It's pretty exciting. And it is a B cup for sizes 0 to 22. So the dart is it does have a bust dart, and it is a B for 0 to 22, and then a D cup for 12 to 30. So if you're in that 12 to 22 range, you can choose whether you want a B or a D. And it's available up to a 58-inch bust, which is my full bust. Now, I had originally made another shirt and found that I definitely needed to do an FBA, a full bust adjustment, on these patterns that had a bust dart. It just gave me a better fit in the shoulder and a better fit in the bust line. So for these that are slightly more, I mean, fitted is not the right word, but more fitted than, for example, the dress number 1. It's just a good option. So, the other fun thing about this one is it has this kind of applied hem, which I think is really nice, especially it kind of, if you're using a heavier fabric, it gives it a little bit more body and it gives it even a boxier look. You'll see here, so this is a very lightweight woven. This is from Cotton and Steel's Ruby Star Society Weft and Wovens, I think is what it's called. And it's kind of like a clip dot, but just slightly different. But it's very lightweight. You can see probably, maybe, I don't know if you can see, it is a slightly sheer, like if you hold it to the light. But, okay, yes. So I made mine a size 24 with a 4-inch full bust adjustment. So I thought originally, really I should have probably done a 22, but then I was getting into like 5 inches and I was like, that's too much for an FBA for me. I'm still fairly new to them, but I am pleased with how it turned out, and I really do like the look of it. I think it's really sweet. It's slightly more forgiving with the bust dart, probably because the fabric is a little softer and it drapes nicely, but it still does need to be worn. It doesn't need to be anything. I feel more comfortable wearing it with a more structured bra versus like a sports bra, but I can wear it with both and still feel fine. And again, that's just my personal decision. But I really liked it. This pattern was really enjoyable. That was what I was going to say. I did not do the full, the facing. I just did a bias binding, and that was because I was adjusting the bust quite a bit, and I just didn't want to like worry about that. The other nice thing about not doing facings is that it allows you to do kind of like smaller adjustments. Like if you just find that, the armhole is just a little bit too, you can just kind of nip it in. Whereas if you have a facing, you can totally do that, but it creates more bulk and it's a little bit more obnoxious. So this was just a wearable muslin, and so I enjoy doing just bias bindings on those because it allows me to kind of tweak the fit a little bit better just for my skill level, which I would say is, for garment sewing, is probably, I might be intermediate by now. I think I'm intermediate. But fitting wise, I'm maybe just an adventurous beginner, fitting wise. Like there's two different things, right? Like construction wise, I feel strongly like I'm an intermediate, but fitting I'm still working on it. So yeah, so I really like this one, and I do think I will make some more in the future. And I like that it has that option for an all-in-one bust facing. Because the nice thing about that is lots of times you don't actually have to tack them down because they are pulling against the arm and the neckline. They usually hold themselves down quite nicely, especially if you do your understitching. P.S. pro tip, always do your understitching. I didn't know what it was for the longest time. Do it. It helps your facings, or whatever it might be, your binding, whatever. It helps it to like turn under and lay much more nicely. So if you're not sure why you're doing it, you can totally Google why do understitching and you'll find great information out there, but just do it. It's really the way to go. Okay, and then the next one I'm going to talk about, the last one I'm going to talk about is the Springfield top. And this is a pattern by Cashmerette. And here it is in another version. So it's two versions. There is a, there's two versions. One of them is got like a back princess seam. You can see it here. And one of them has a less fitted look. So that one also has, I believe, a curved hem. And then there's one that's a slightly just boxier look. And it has, see this little, see how she has a band across the bottom? It's really nice if you want to turn it into a crop top. You can literally just leave off that bottom stripe. And for me, it makes it a good crop top length. So again, all I did was leave that bottom stripe off and just hem it as I would anything else. It is written with facings, yes? Now I can't remember. I just did bias binding, but I can't remember if it has the facings or not. But anyway, it's available for sizes 12 to 28 in 3 cup sizes. So if you are not confident about doing a full bust adjustment, Cashmerette has amazing tutorials. They also have a great little tool where you can plug in your measurements and it will tell you what size you should make with what full bust adjustment, which is great if you're not, there's lots of ways to calculate it. And you can find that just by Googling. But they have in their pattern, like if you look at the pattern description, it has a sizing guide with a size calculator where you can plug in your information and it'll tell you what you should do. What else? This is one of the, this pattern is available as both a PDF and an actual hard copy pattern. So if you don't like the idea of a PDF, this is a great option. So I think the upper bust measurement is probably something like a 58, because the first one I did is this one, and I'll put it in here. Description. Okay, so that is the one that I made just in the largest size with the largest cup size. And you'll see it kind of has a boxier look to it. This is just a textured woven that I purchased from Cottonier. I really like them. Far too much. And you can see that it has like this little back yoke, but the front does not have that detail. It just has the bust dart. So again, this one, I'm very pleased with it. It just was a little bit wider on the shoulder, which I anticipated. So the next one I did was a size 22 with a 4-inch full bust adjustment on the largest cup size. And you can see that one on my body here. It is also a textured woven from Cottonier Fabrics. And so this one worked out quite well. I needed to do a little bit of fiddling with my bust dart, like the actual shape of the dart, because of just the way my body is proportioned, I guess. And so that's something that I'm really trying to get, that I'm definitely still new at. Unlike when you're doing full bust adjustments for a sweater, the knitting is very forgiving. When you're doing it on a sewn garment, the wovens, it is much less forgiving. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't fit, but for example, if I wear this one with just like a sports bra or no bra, I don't care for the way it fits, because that bust dart points out like up here, and then my boob is like down here. Or even just like, yeah, it's off, right? So I do need to wear this one with a more structured bra. And so, yeah, so the fit's a little bit less forgiving in that way. But that's, again, for my own personal choice of how I like things to look. But But yeah, so I'm still experimenting with, you can do all sorts of different shapes of bust starts. You can place them in different places. You can angle them at different angles. You don't have to do a straight line dart. You can curve it more or less. Some people even curve it the other way. So yeah, there's like it's like all about where like the fullness of your breast tissue is. Like some people carry their breasts, wider and like closer to their bodies, and some people carry them further out, and some people have a narrower apex, and some people have a wider apex, and some people have a higher apex. And your apex is just like the point of your boob, like theoretically where your nipple would be if like God wasn't cruel. So, there's just a gabillion different boob configurations, as we all know. And that's really, it's an intimidating thing about doing bust adjustments, but it's also an amazing thing about doing bust adjustments is that you don't have to do them at all. Like I have in that 100 Acts of Sewing top, which I really love the look of. Or you can like really go down a rabbit hole like I've done in this cashmerette by changing not only the bust size, you can change where the apex, the height is, the angle of it. You can I changed the curve a little bit more because I felt like I was having too much fabric like right here. So I changed the angle and the curve of the bust dart a little bit to try to help take out some of that fabric. But yeah. So it's both intimidating and really awesome. But the good thing is you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But you totally can and just go crazy and make it so specifically you. But just like, it's not exactly like knitting patterns where everything is really fairly standard. So for example, like once you know kind of how to adjust your raglan patterning to fit you, you can almost always just do what you know to do, right? Sewing for me at this point is not quite there because again, it just doesn't seem to be as standardized as the knitting patterns, Some people have a different depth of armhole for bust or circumference or whatever, but usually it's pretty close. But in sewing, which is ironic because it is the least forgiving fit wise, it does seem to have much more variation in terms of like, just like dart placement and all this other stuff, but it's very interesting. So, but I do think that it's mostly like, okay, this will be a good starting place. Like, this has taught me that if I do want to do something that's more fitted as a tank, I probably need to start with something that fits my upper bust and then do like pretty much I could start with a 4-inch FBA and just see how it goes. So there will be less kind of wearable muslins and test sewing in my future. And so these are all still very wearable for me. But if you're unsure, like for example, if you just don't want to even worry about finishing something, you're like, ugh, I don't want to put the bias on there or the facing or whatever. If the fit is just tragic for me, you don't have to. You can totally buy really inexpensive fabrics that are on clearance. You can buy old bed sheets, or if you have old bed sheets, if you have a skirt that you don't use anymore that is looking pretty tattered and you're just like, I don't even know if that's going to have to go to the secondhand shop, you can cut that up and make it different colors and different pieces and whatever. When you get down to like a really specific fit of a bust dart or maybe like if you're doing a fitted waist pant, then the kind of the drape of the fabric is going to matter more. But just to start off with, you're going to get a fairly good idea, at least where to start, so that you can make a wearable muslin that's maybe not your favorite fabric, but is something that you do feel like you could wear, and then go from there. But so yeah, yay fat folk sewing, yay everybody sewing. But I'm fat, and fat-centered. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in more sewing information, feel free to put a note in the comment. Remember to tell me what a gathering of crop tops is. I do need to know. And yeah. So thank you so much if you've supported the podcast. It is deeply appreciated. from me and from the folks who are enjoying this now. So thank you. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.